What did a crush do that made you instantly lose interest in him/her? She asked me if I wanted to go to a concert with her, then she wanted me to pay for both tickets that I knew she got for free. Promptly laughed at her and told her she can frick off with some other idiot. It's funny how fast the ugliness on the inside can overcome anything good on the outside. She did me a favor that day. He asked me to help him hook up with my best friend. We were out drinking, he got drunk and started fighting a guy that he thought had been harassing me. The guy said he didn't harass me, I said he didn't harass me, my crush still tried to defend me. Never lost interest faster. I worked up the courage to ask this girl to go on a date. She said yes. On the date, she proceeded to spend the whole time gossiping about anyone and everyone she could talk bad about. I still remember the moment it clicked that she was just super shallow and mean. Was crushing on this girl for freaking months, and it turns out at her last apartment she stole $1,500 for coke and abruptly ended the lease, giving her 2 roommates barely any time at all to find new housing, one of which had to move back in with their abusive mother. He tossed an empty drink bottle onto a random lawn as we walked down the street. Here's a lighthearted one. I developed my first crush when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. This was right around the time when Pokemon were first becoming really popular, so naturally I was obsessed with them. I had the cards, the Game Boy games, etc. One day I overheard the girl I had a crush on talking to her friends at recess about how weird Pokemon were, and thus in a flash a young love was extinguished. Fast forward about 22 years and my wife also doesn't like Pokemon, because life is strange. Acting like a complete peepee head, and when I addressed it he said, I know I'm an asshole, but I'm really sexy like. Okay, suddenly, you're really not sexy at all. She was going to a party and I said you seem pretty unenthusiastic about going. She replied with don't use big words. Threw rocks at a cat because she thought it was funny. That's no way to show appreciation to a funny cat. This guy that I'd been talking to for a while on Tinder who I thought was cool/cute but he never seemed down to meet up. One time he randomly messaged me to say he'd gone over to someone's place and they'd had sex 3 times. I think he was trying to make me jealous but it just made me feel a bit gross. We were 5, had planned to marry when we got older with a pancake cake and everything. I was invited to his birthday party and he and his friend was climbing a tree with him being higher up. Suddenly he pees down on his friend. We never got married. He was mean to his mom. Demanded money from her so we could go out, in front of me, and then called his grandma to get some more money so we could go out. So uncomfortable. Not my crush, but someone who had a crush on me or so I was told. She asked for my birthday, and I told her. She then calculated that I was younger than her by a week or so and straight up said to me I did have a crush on a guy but then I found out he was younger than me so now there's not crush. Damn dude. It was a teenage crush. He had multiple girlfriends, who didn't know about each other. Disloyalty is not cool. Found out she was a cousin. We were in class together and it was all a pure coincidence. Neither of us had any idea until a family member casually mentioned to me doesn't her name go to your school? Well, crap. Not something that she did, but her breath smelled like shit, literally like shit. Found out he was a serial cheater and cheated on his exes with strippers and masseuses. I had a crush on a guy in 5th grade. He found out about my crush and made a really hateful nickname for me and teased me about my body. Got all of his friends to tease me too. Realizing he was a garbage person set me straight pretty quickly. This is a serious response. He threatened to kill me and himself if I broke up with him. We were alone in the house and he was having some sort of episode where he spaced out, became robotic, and dissociated. This made him act very slow and lethargic. He had mental issues. I grabbed my stuff and ran. Never saw him again but I know he was hospitalized. I'm married now and he hasn't contacted me since. I actually hope he's doing better. Turns out he never bothered to develop a personality because his looks and sporting prowess carried him through every interaction in his life. I didn't care about sports so when I finally ended up having a one-on-one chat with him, the guy was a complete void. Couldn't talk about anything. Hadn't even developed the ability to ask questions because he was all too happy to just be praised and talked about all the time. It was so bizarre. He didn't really know what he liked, had no real opinion on anything outside of sports, didn't have any hobbies and was generally just dull as dishwater. Crush on a girl my junior year of college. She liked to heavily make fun of people and I mean hard. Like to the point I would say hi to someone I knew. After we walked off she would have some remark. She went from attractive to not wanting to be around her really quickly. I've shared this before, but one time I was out on a first date with this girl I met online. I thought she was very attractive and we seemed to hit off well through texts. We're at this bar and she suggests we play a people watching game where we try to make up backstories for the other people there. I thought it sounded fun, especially since I played a similar game with friends on the train sometimes. Plus it felt like a good icebreaker to get us talking. Well, she managed to take all the fun out the game by being ridiculously cruel in all her assumptions for no real reason at all. It felt like she was projecting issues she had onto these people. Like one guy was sitting at the bar alone, could have been waiting for someone, you never know, but because he was alone he was a freaking loser with no friends that hates his life. Completely killed the mood and I lost interest in her after that. Couldn't see myself going on a second date with someone like that. He drove like an idiot while I was in the car. I literally thought he was going to kill us, and he was road raging the whole time. This was on the highway too. I asked him to stop driving like that and he didn't. Never going out with him again. Tortured a housefly and gave an oral book report trashing my favorite book, at the time, for being boring and having too many words. Then started bragging he could have any girl in the school he wanted. Shortest crush of my life. I misunderstood a comment and he was a PP about it in front of a few people. Laughing at my instead of kindly correcting me. What a frickhead. Didn't defend me when his friends tried to assault me, just laughed with them. This is the long version of the story. I have never been popular, was always bullied and stuff. One of the things people told me was that I was a prude, because I never had a boyfriend at that point. Apparently, some of my classmates got inspired by that and started a bet. Whoever could do me in, a slang word in my language that can mean anything from making out to sex, would win. Every contestant put in a certain amount of money. At the height of the contest it was about 100 euros, that would be their prize. All of a sudden, I was invited to popular parties, people tried to make me drink, random people started talking to me, flirting, groping. More and more people became aware of the bet, so even people I'd never talked to or who were complete strangers to me started to hit me up. It was weird, I was still in the dark about the bet and I didn't get why some guys, sometimes even girls, wanted to hang out with me or wanted to see me drink. Luckily for me I don't drink, but it was all very uncomfortable. My crush and I went on a school trip together with the rest of our year, and all of a sudden things get out of hand. People groping me, now the supervision of the teachers is half gone, people trying to ask me if I ever kissed someone. The most scary experience was when a couple of guys cornered me in the park and told me, very detailed, how they wanted to have sex with me. Some of them were my classmates, some of them were friends of my crush, one of them was my crush. You can imagine how scared I was as a 15-year-old, no adults in sight, only me and these 10-16-year-olds. I was hoping my crush would defend me, he was a nice guy, never laid a hand on anybody, always friendly. But he just laughed. They were telling me how they would rape me and he laughed. It took 2 more months before another girl had the courage to tell me what was going on. She used the word do in, and I was too flustered to ask if she meant the light version or all the way. When I told the teachers about the bet, about all the people who were involved, about how no one told me anything about it, not even the girls, they told me I had no proof, was imagining things again and that boys will be boys with hormones, what can we do about that? It all stopped when I got a boyfriend that very summer, who was 5 years older than me and would later turn out to be an abuser. He looked like he was 30 though, so I guess most of the guys got too scared to lay a hand on me. But yeah, that's how my crush lost my interest. She fricked my dad. Best to not crush on your mom anyways. Told her I liked her, then she blocked me on all social media and bullied me harshly whenever she saw me, ouch. Used a baby voice when speaking to me. Dude, she knocked over my Lego Death Star, she had to go. She started posting videos of her making out with drunk old men to her Snap. We're both in college. When I said I was legitimately suicidal and wanted to talk to her to get my mind off of it, she responded with "You're so self-centered and lol, do it pussy." And the best part is I thought we were good friends up until that point. You shouldn't play Dungeons and Dragons, you know. When you cast the spells in the game, you're actually casting them in your spirit, and that lets the devil get into you. I was, like, wait. And I'm supposed to be the one who can't tell reality from fiction? Long distance, only online crush/boyfriend. We were playing a modified TTRPG in the early 2010s and we made the horrible mistake of playing versions of ourselves, same names, ages, etc. Lots of shit happened, but the thing that really made me feel like shit was when I felt like a third wheel with him and his best bro. We were playing in a survival setting, so we would delegate chores to make sure we had supplies, fuel, ammo, etc. by the end of each day. Every time my boyfriend would choose to go with his guy friend for things. I didn't mind the first couple of times, but I did kinda want a day where the two of us hung out, since, again, this was a LD relationship, never happened. The one time I forced the issue and said I was coming along to hunt or something, they just ignored me and did their usual thing. Joke's on me, though. Turns out boyfriend was deep in the closet and hanging out with his guy friend in game was him living out his fantasy of having a boyfriend. We are 8 or so and he asked for a pen. So I gave him mine. He chewed on it, instant turn off. Alcohol and cigarettes. We were 13 back then. Rejected me. Don't keep trying when you know it's pointless, guys. She saw an Oreo in the cleaner's dustpan, picked it up, and ate it. Told me spout his stash of kitty porn. Yes, I did report it. Made fun of a chick who was into him for being chubby. He was fluffy himself, and I called him on it and walked away from that. Not me but my wife before we met. There was an event in Salt Lake City and she was from Northern Washington. She had a crush on this guy and decided to join carpooling with him and couple other people. They stopped to grab some fast food and went back on their way. Well, as soon as he finished eating/drinking, he tossed the whole bag out the window while driving. After that, she barely talked to him, and once they got to SLC she left him and joined some other friends and went back home with them instead. A long road trip is one of those things that should be mandatory before marrying someone. Some guy I went out with kept trying to convince me to sleep with him even after repeatedly telling him no. Some people just can't take no for an answer. Hey, we still good for tomorrow? Sorry, my boyfriend wants to come over. Great way to find out she both forgot about our plans and had a boyfriend. A few things. She told me she hated how much guys share their feelings/emotions now. She said that if she dates someone she wants them to be a typical man and not show any type of weakness. One of those things like, I don't want to hear if a man is sad or upset, I just don't care. She liked pretty heavy music. Like prog metal and hardcore music, which is cool. However, she didn't like anything else and would blatantly put down any other type of music and or not give it a chance. Almost made you feel stupid for liking anything else. Showed her a friend's artwork and her response was, yeah, not impressive. It would be impressive if they did, X, and, Y. Like, I understand that you don't have to like every person's art, but her demeanor about it was too condescending. A mix between sudden and extreme explosive road rage and a misogynistic rant that came out of nowhere. He's an ex now, but he's gotten worse. Showed his true colors obviously. In my very first relationship, they kept telling me every freaking day how much they've been hurt in the past and that they hoped I wouldn't make them suffer the same. I tried to help them, like talk about their problems and all, but since it was a long distance relationship it was kinda hard. And them always talking about suicidal things made me so worried. It was terrible for my mental health. I wanted to leave since it made me lose interest, but I didn't want to hurt them like they kept saying how much they've been hurt. And one day it was too much for me, so I just blocked them everywhere. I know I'm kinda the bad guy in this story for just leaving like that, but I just couldn't bear it anymore. Had a crush on this girl who was dating someone at the time. I was hanging out with her and she kept checking her phone. Later she announced she was upset because her so hadn't texted her first that day, so they hadn't texted at all. She was building resentment over literally nothing. Useful insight into what a relationship with her might have looked like. Smoking. My folks both smoked and died from lung cancer. Saw it coming as a kid. Complete turn off and buzzkill. She asked me to prom. I said yeah. 2 days before prom, I actually don't want to go with you, but I already bought both of our tickets. As the guy, I expect you to pay me back for them. I tried to explain that's not how transactions work. She kept telling me it was my responsibility. I asked if she was smoking crack. Never heard from her again. Not necessarily a crush, but a married coworker I might be interested in if she were single. My coworkers had a bar crawl for a holiday party one year. We finished at one of the bars, so some of us started going to the next bar that was just down the street. My coworker and I passed this one store that sold games like Magic and D&D. She half joked that she was tempted to go in and laugh at the people in there. That rubbed me the wrong way for 2 reasons. First, she's a school counselor and talked about how bullying is bad. Hypocrite much? Secondly, I'm the kind of person who might play those kinds of games, so she unknowingly said that she'd be willing to laugh at me. They poked fun at my mom. Going to a primarily white school, him and a group of his guy friends always made fun of how she dressed and how short she was. I didn't super know him, but he was a part of the group that did, and that's all I needed to know. My mom is this sweet, short Asian woman who loves to smile, and yes, she sometimes wears goofy clothing, but no one makes fun of my mama. No one. He said that he doesn't like ugly people and they all should die or be put in a corner. Told me that while he thought I wasn't dumb, that I couldn't be smarter than him because I was female and a few months younger. Our test scores, entrance exams and work history later determined that that was a lie. He was an ass to our teacher because he was going to play baseball in college. Looked him up and he's definitely not doing it professionally and hasn't graduated yet. We went out to breakfast, maybe our second or third date, and bumped into his friend who sat with us for a bit while ordering a coffee to go. Just long enough to be super rude to the guy serving us. I just couldn't get over the fact that he had friends like this. I let it fade out. Bumped into him maybe a year later, and he opened with telling me that he'd written off that friend as a total jerk and that he should have stopped giving him the time of day after high school. I literally high-fived him, which he thought was funny, and went out for a few years after that. Went on a date with a guy to a Chinese restaurant, and as we were leaving he threw trash on the ground when there was a trash can a few feet away. Then we went to his house to watch a movie and he picked his cat up by the scruff of its neck and threw it. Not a set it down to get it off the counter kind of thing, but a legit throw across the room. I left right then and there and told him why. He called me a bitch and a tease, for whatever reason, never gave him the impression I was going to sleep with him that night, and was yelling at me as I was backing my car out of his drive. I got to the end of his road and blocked his number. Asked her out, she said yes. Then, she dumped me 2 weeks in, saying she didn't want to start anything new because she was moving in a month and didn't tell me. Then that time came for her to move, and where does she move? Into my house. She got with my roommate that looks creepily close to how I look. We would often get mistaken for brothers, twins even, and started a committed relationship with him. There were some thin walls in that house too. Got in his car for a date and he rolled down his window and threw about 5 fast food cups out on the side of the road. Made a comment about there being enough illegals around to clean up after him. Nope. I crushed on a girl for a couple of years and didn't ask her out because life was busy for me, but eventually I was able to ask her out. I took her to the movies to see the most recent Star Wars movie. Before the movie started, she was slamming beers down, which I have no issue with drinking, but she was near sloppy drunk. During the movie, she would talk throughout the entire movie and constantly look at her phone. Funny enough, she would make some rude comments towards other people for talking and I would cringe at the irony. Later that night, we drove to a gas station so she could get cigarettes and she was being completely rude to the cashier because he couldn't understand what she was asking for in her belligerent state. She tried to convince me to stay the night with her, but any attraction I had for her was completely gone. She had a placard for handicap parking from a friend that she stole and abused at will. 25 years old, hot AF, and an entitled sociopath. Oh, if only my brain could better turn off feelings once someone treats me terribly. I think I'm better at this now, but my teen years and early 20s were not good experiences with women. Smoke in my car. I knew she was a smoker, but doing that in someone else's car, especially a non-smoker, without authorization is a complete lack of education. Made me even more pissed cause the previous owner was a smoker and it took nearly a year to take that smell off the car. Even the car got pissed at her. It broke down half the way, lol. Got pissed at me for leaving them on read, got pissed for me not responding to them saying okay. Went out and got dinner with her, we both had a great time and wanted to go again. She didn't have a day off for a couple weeks, so it was going to be the next Friday she had off. Sounds good. She told her friend, who told me that it was one of the best dates she'd been on and had an awesome time. She canceled, no big deal, had to help her mom or something. More or less ghosted me after I tried to set something up again, left on read on one occasion, sent me a shrug when I asked when she had time off next on another. She was wondering why I stopped texting her as much as I used to. If you act disinterested, I'm going to be disinterested. Shit ain't high school. She wadded up her cigarette pack and threw it out the window while I was driving. I had to ask her, did you throw that out the car window? I turned around to go back and pick it up. She was embarrassed, but I knew I could never be with someone like that. She was super hot but was extremely rude to the wait staff at the restaurant we had our first date at. You could just tell that hidden under that supposedly friendly/happy demeanor was an absolute terror of a person just waiting to get out. Noped out of that one with a quickness. Went on our first date and were sitting outside at a cafe. I was just people watching. She was pointing out what was wrong with everyone that passed by. She said she enjoyed picking out people's flaws. She thought it was a good date. Wanted me to go home with her. I was so disgusted by her personality and chapter that I was just like, nah. She was incredibly hot physically, was a bikini barista. Couldn't stand to be around her once I saw how she looks at other people. Earlier this year I was newly single and sleeping around a bit. I met this girl called Harriet. She was lovely, we had sex a few times. But she was really nice and always had loads of energy. Once at like 3 a.m. she cleaned my kitchen and cute but weird things like that. Turns out she had a crippling speed addiction. And just freaking bombed it for breakfast, lunch and dinner. That's a no from me.